Hi, everybody. My name is Dwayne, and we're here in Toronto at Bayview Glen Church. And Daniel and Sarah, thank you so much for those remarks that you made. Very, very helpful. We are live now, so other people can hear us. I'm super excited about our speakers today. We have a daughter-father team, Jenna and Terry Sanderson, and Francis is going to help us with some technicalities as we do this. We have a PowerPoint that we are making sure works. Good. So we have a daughter-father team today, Jenna and Terry Sanderson, and they're here with me now. So I won't do a long introduction except to say I've read a couple of Jenna's articles online and was very encouraged by them after somebody introduced me and your dad last year. And then Terry and I had met briefly at a couple of events. And, in the Christian world, when we meet people, we might not know each other, but then we know somebody who knows each other. And so after he and I connected around somebody, I called them up and said, "Hey, I met Terry. I think you know him." And she had nothing but great things to say about you and your wife and your family and the church. And so I'm so pleased to welcome Jenna and Terry Sanderson to share with us now. And I'll position this microphone a little bit as well over here, okay?
Well, it is great to be with you together and to welcome you here to Bayview Glen. We're so glad to have all of you sharing with us. And this afternoon, I think you're going to see a theme just as we talk about belonging. And we just want to share about what it means for all people to find belonging in family, but also within the church, and speaking more from a pastor's perspective. And I'm privileged to share this with my daughter, Jenna, who has really helped me become a better pastor. And that is so true. And as we heard, we've had lots of great adventures when we're all together as a family. You meet some amazing people and go through unusual situations, and we have stories that we can't tell people. That's it's just our own stories. Anyway, Jenna was born extremely premature. She and her twin brother were micro preemies. Her brother Josh passed. Several times we thought Jenna was not going to live through the night. The doctors told us Jenna would never hear, never communicate, never understand. But you're going to see that the Lord has been more faithful than we could imagine. So, Jenna, I'd love for you, in your own words, just to share a little bit about yourself.
I'm thankful to be a part of the discussion on belonging this afternoon, and it is extra special for me because I'm getting to do this with my dad. From a young age, I've known that Jesus is my Savior. My first memorable encounter with God was at bedtime one night, with my mom reading the story of Jesus healing the paralyzed man. What I didn't know back then was that God was quietly preparing me and teaching me to trust Him in the hard things and the special moments. I have grown up loving being a part of the church, and I have been very blessed to have positive experiences. I know that others with disabilities and their families haven't always experienced the love and care that I have, which is why we want to help churches understand what it means to love everyone, regardless of ability or disability. We hope you will find this insightful.
So today we want to cover three different topics. So we want to just talk about the call to belonging, as we've already said, looking at that passage. Talk about the journey to belonging that we've had as a family, and then some principles of how we get there, particularly as a church. So to begin, let me ask you: have you ever been in a room with lots of people and felt invisible? Maybe you were warmly greeted at the church door, but only to be left alone in the sanctuary. Or you're sitting in a pew and everybody else around you is talking, but no one's talking with you. Or you're sitting in a wheelchair and everyone stands up in the pew in front of you and you can't see a thing. And that's what I think of when we read Luke 14 and the parable of the great banquet. And it was precisely this experience of someone being in the room but not belonging. And as Sarah has said, this is what prompted the parable of the banquet. In the beginning of the chapter, we read this man with dropsy edema swelling in his body who'd been invited by the Pharisees. He was not able to walk, sitting at the table, but no one was talking to him. In fact, they were talking about what to do with him. And with edema, the man would have been considered ritualistically unclean, probably not regularly invited to a Pharisee's home, and this was really a trap to see would Jesus heal on the Sabbath. The man doesn't belong. He's attending, but he doesn't belong because he's a project. He's a ministry. He's to prove a point. And maybe you felt that way. And notice Jesus doesn't treat the man as a problem to fix, but as someone to restore and to honor. Jesus heals him, sends him on his way. I think, as Sarah said, he's probably going to belong somewhere else more. But what's important about this passage is that Jesus places a visibly disabled man at the center of the conversation, not in the margins. And it suggests that people with disabilities are not objects of debate or pity or exploitation. They're people worthy of care and honor. And sometimes it's easy to see people as projects or problems to solve, but they are people to honor, which is why then Jesus said to the host, when you give a luncheon or a dinner, don't invite your friends, your brothers, your sisters, or your relatives or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back and you'll be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the lame, the crippled, the blind, and you'll be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you'll be repaid in the resurrection of the righteous. And Jenna, we've been repaid in so many ways, is that you experience life in so many ways. So I want to say, as a pastor, I have to confess, it's taken me a lot of time sometimes to see people and not as ministry, and not as people to minister to. And so I wanted to share a bit about that journey, because as a young pastor, I remember standing or sitting in my office, looking out the window onto the street. This was in London, Ontario, and I'd watch a blind man walk past our church week after week. I didn't know his name. I knew he couldn't see me if I waved to him. And I thought, boy, it would be hard for him to belong. And it still bothers me. I did nothing. I didn't do anything. We had no steps to the main floor, but we had a basement with just stairs. So technically, the top of the building was accessible. But accessibility and welcoming, as we heard, are very different things. You could get through the door, but belonging was another matter. You couldn't really fit through the pews or the narrow aisles. We eventually built a brand new building, one floor, which meant wheelchairs could move freely. We had cutouts for people. We had an accessible washroom, well, kind of accessible. We had sign language on special occasions, large print manuscripts for those who needed them. But I slowly realized something humbly. We made it easy for people to attend, but we hadn't really made it easy for them to truly belong. They were present, accommodated for, but they were still in a quiet way projects. And people know when they're someone's project. We started a Saturday evening service, and a number of university students were attending, and many of them had part-time weekend jobs with community living. They would bring some of their clients and introduce them not just to church, but to each other. And you began to see a community developing. We had developed a friendship club out of that. And then many of those people with varying disabilities started serving in the congregation. They'd sit at the door. They'd hand out a bulletin. They would welcome people from their wheelchair. And all of a sudden, they became a part. They were worshiping and worshiping in their own way. And we began to renovate spaces with belonging in mind, better accessible bathrooms, bigger change tables for people. And then in 2009, we moved again to St. Louis, Missouri, to a much larger church with a single-story facility, except for a balcony, but there was an elevator that went there. Children's ministry had a buddy system that worked for Jenna, and inclusion felt good. But as Jenna became a teenager, I began to see belonging is more than just being included. So I want Jenna to share about her understanding of belonging and how she found that as a teenager.
I have been involved in the life and leadership of the church for as long as I can remember. It feels natural to me, like a second home. My whole family enjoys serving. People have sometimes asked my sisters and me if we were forced to go to church because our dad is a pastor, but we could honestly tell them that we just want to be there. And because of that, our serving was a byproduct. The funny thing is, the three of us are actively in ministry because we have a purpose and a love for the church. My sisters are working in children's ministry. I had a hard time finding my place. Let me explain how I found it. During my middle school years at the previous church, Ellie, an animated, outgoing high schooler, was my buddy, who also became my friend. She was amazing at introducing me to other youth, helping me participate in the fun stuff, and showing others what it was like to be comfortable hanging out with me. Ellie knew I was an extrovert and up for anything. She was great at getting me up on stage with her and others in my small group to perform fun songs that were always a little over the top for lip sync battles at youth camps and events. The youth pastor and small group leaders didn't have much experience with creating an inclusive environment, but they started to become more aware to do things differently. Although Ellie and I didn't start out to change a youth group, we did end up influencing it. Our partnership gave both the youth and the leaders a chance to understand a little more about disability. As they got to know me and see my personality, they were able to get past my wheelchair. Just as importantly, it gave me a taste of what it is to be seen and included as a coworker, and a desire to participate more fully in the life of the church. By high school, my sense of purpose ignited. I felt called to help others with disabilities get to know Jesus. I was already part of a large youth group, but there were no other youth with disabilities. I had friends at my high school who didn't attend church on Sundays, but were interested in coming for youth nights. I also wanted to participate more easily in small group discussions, but my friends and I needed more time to think and speak. My mom and I discussed some ideas with Stacy, the disability ministry director. She listened and invited me to partner with her to create a small group where youth with disabilities could feel comfortable and learn more about how God was working in our lives. Some of the new friends I invited couldn't stay out very late, so we scheduled our small group to start an hour before the other youth group. Those who needed to leave early could do so, while the rest of us stayed for worship, devotional, and some fun group activities. Stacy, my mom, and I continued planning. One church event we had was a respite night for those with disabilities and their siblings, giving parents a few hours off. It ranged from childhood to young adulthood. It also was my first opportunity to speak at a church. Stacy's invitation to collaborate in reaching out to youth with disabilities was life-giving, and confirmed that my gifts and calling were connected to being a voice for those with disabilities in the church.
So then we moved here to Bayview Glen 4 years ago, moving back to Toronto. And now our daughter is not in children's ministry, where it's sometimes easier, or in youth ministry. Now she's an adult. And so where would she find belonging? And what would church really be like for her? And as you experience, this is a two-story building, kind of accessible. Well, there's two accessible washrooms, one at the top of the elevator, one in the atrium at the far end. But here's a funny story. We were here for 2 years before we realized there were no accessible push buttons and automatic openers. And they were supposed to be in for today. They're coming very soon. They are coming, and but because Jenna, usually someone attends Jenna. Sorry, but someone opens the door for her, and we were blind to that. We didn't realize every person's experience with what it is. We are people of all people who have an eye out for accessibility, and we even missed it. So as a young adult here, I want Jenna to share how she found new belonging and what that was in the family of God.
As a young adult here at Bayview Glen, I've been a coworker in a different way. I started by serving as a Sunday morning greeter with my mom. I realized I didn't need her beside me anymore because the other greeters were so friendly and supportive. Andrea, our Connect director, invited me to be a ministry lead for the Belong team, a team of individuals with disabilities who serve alongside the other hospitality teams. The Belong team is a group that collectively has a place to voice suggestions and ideas that impact those with disabilities. The congregation started to recognize me and engage with me more comfortably, even if it is just a smile or a hello. I've also joined the prayer ministry. My mom and I started together, but she needed to be in other ministry areas, so once again, I found myself on my own. The beautiful thing about prayer is that I don't have to pray out loud to know that I am participating. But when I do, people in our prayer ministry are so at ease with me that I don't have to worry whether they catch every word. I know they're praying with me, and I know that God understands my heart. The great thing about having a family who are willing to model relationships is that others began to feel more comfortable with me, and eventually, they started to show others how to do the same. I believe that building relationships is a form of discipleship that helps to shape our identity to be more like Christ. When I look back on these experiences, I can see that God was helping us navigate the challenges of disability while also using those experiences to help the churches my dad pastors to see the beauty and joy that come from including all kinds of bodies and abilities in the body of Christ. My family always looked for ways to help me feel like I belonged and had purpose, but it wasn't without challenges. Dad is going to tell us what those challenges are.
So you've heard how Jenna's found some meaningful belonging through our Welcome and Connect team, through our prayer ministry. We have a growing buddy ministry for children, a shalom room where people can find quiet, but there's much more to do. And one of my mantras that drives people crazy is, but like a mighty glacier crawls the church of God. That's the speed at which the church changes. And I wish it were super easy for churches to make changes, for everyone to belong. And I know that sometimes people leave conferences like this and everybody gets, oh, fired up. I got to do something. I know what it is that I can do or change or make. But there's so many things to consider. And so I just want to bring some realities to the situation. And in the parable, of the banquet, some of the people made what seemed were excuses. They were, for some of them, good biblical reasons, actually, why they missed. And these aren't excuses. I hate to see them as obstacles, but they're realities that we must face and understand because people get gung ho and they try something and realize it's much more difficult, is much more challenging that they think. And I don't want people to leave and get discouraged. I want people to know this is a long game and one little step can make a big difference. And I do want to say, first of all, I know pastors and churches, we really do want to help and make church a place where everyone belongs. I don't know any pastor who says, oh, we don't want people with disability, or we don't want that, or we can't handle that. No one is going to say we don't want that. Sometimes people are stuck or challenged, or the reality of having to deal with a wide variety of needs and passions that people have in their congregation. We're trying to deal with people who have sickness, there's aging issues, poverty issues, mental health issues, homelessness. You may have come where we do with food insecurity. You probably met some of those folks on your way in. Orphans, people go, the Bible says, widows and orphans, that's the most important thing. That's true religion. Then you have people, it's like, no, the Great Commission's got to go to the ends of the earth. Why aren't we going farther around the ends of the earth to help? How do you help everyone who wants to belong? This is the reality. And then there are financial costs. If you want to start trying to make a place accessible and place for people to include, there's financial thing. I think it's like $25,000 to put two electric, handicap door openers in. It's like a crazy amount of money. We have one room that's not accessible yet in the building, and it's over $100,000 just to put a small lift in to do that. Our elevator, it does work. It's safe, I promise you, but it does need an upgrade. It just needs reservicing. That's $120,000. It's a lot of money to try to raise. And you have that, and then people are going, but there's people who are hungry in our city. Their kids going to bed at night with no food, a button on a door, or food. And it's the age-old, I'm an original Star Trek fan, if any of you are of that vintage. And Spock says, there you go, thank you. Spock says, the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. or the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one? And these are the dilemmas that often church leaders face. As you start trying to create a place for people to belong, there's also a wide variety of needs. Who do you really help and how do you do it? The whole term disability covers a wide variety of situations. And so one size of ministry doesn't fit all. You kind of think, well, we could just do something, create something, they'll all come. And to a certain degree, that's true. But there's a lot of different challenges and uniqueness. You have people with high physical needs, and they have limited cognitive ability as well. And you put those together with people with low physical needs and high cognitive ability, and sometimes they don't mesh that well. They're not able to integrate. And so do you do one ministry? Do you have two ministries? Do you have three ministries? You've got people who have social preferences. They want to be around a lot of people. You have others who want to be around a very quiet environment. You have those who they want to sit and play video games all the time. We've got some young guys, they just play basketball. Give them a basketball, they be in the gym the whole time. They don't want to talk. They don't want to do a Bible study, but they want to play basketball. And it really makes it difficult like to start a ministry and continue and to grow a ministry because you can do well for some, but then others still feel excluded. They don't belong. And then there's caregiver burnout because if we're honest as churches, usually the people most invested in developing a place of belonging for people with disabilities are parents. They want a place for their children, but they tend to have caregiver burnout. They're burning the candle at both ends. They're maybe trying to work, care for their kids, do whatever, and then training volunteers for a wide variety of needs is a challenge. You've got, emotional needs, you've got social needs, you've got physical needs, intellectual needs, and you're trying to train volunteers for all. And sometimes it just gets overwhelming. And how do people help? And sometimes people just don't know what to do. There's also timing and scheduling challenges, and we've tried creating other events, and inevitably, people can never make their schedules fit. For some, early evening works best for their transportation to get here. Some, that's dinner time, and their meal time is important. Others, they don't want to be too late because their caregivers won't be there to help, or trying to navigate transportation back and forth. You got people with individuals' health or their family complications or just other programs that they're a part of. And we try to put events together and do things, and you find very quickly that there are not, I'm not going to say there are excuses, but there are lots of challenges of people getting there. And then there's age issues. And we had in our church one time a 40-year-old man with physical and developmental delays and issues whose mom wanted him to be in the kindergarten class with kids. Yeah, no. Try tell that to the mom. Right? Tell that to the mom. So there's age issues that may seem obvious to other people, but not always obvious to the mother bear who really cares. And developing appropriate ministries for appropriate age groups is a challenge. And then, as I said, you have the balancing of the needs of many versus the needs of one. How do you tailor offering for the needs of so many people without stretching volunteers and damaging may would already be there? How do you individualize programs for so many different kinds of needs? And everyone wants to help. Everyone wants to do something. So given those reality, again, they're challenge. I wouldn't say they're excuses. I wouldn't even say they're obstacles. I just say these are realities. And people sometimes go gung ho. We're going to do something. We're going to create a place to belong. And all of a sudden they come up to these realities unprepared and they throw up their hands. We don't want that to happen. What do you do? Given a wide variety, what do you do? And so I want Genesis to share some of the things that she's learned about how people can work together to really add more seats to that banquet table of belonging.
There are so many ways for the disabled and able-bodied to partner together. Ryan Falk, who works with Johnny and Friends, says, "A church with open doors but closed hearts is not an accessible church." The question then becomes, how can we change the culture of churches? The parable of the banquet is powerful because it's about people inviting others to the table. Jesus tells us in Luke 14:21, "The servant reported back to the host and told him of all their excuses. The master became angry and said to his servant, 'Go at once throughout the city and invite anyone you find, the poor, the blind, the disabled, the hurting, and the lonely. Invite them to my banquet.'" The invitation to serve alongside one another is life-giving. Of course, there are always going to be different levels of ability when it comes to serving, but when we see each other as co-laborers who belong in the body of Christ, we can transform our churches into places of true belonging. Johnny and Friends has 5 steps to help churches be able to make room for families and individuals living with disabilities. Step 1 is moving from unawareness to awareness of the need for accessibility to physical areas of the church, but also social and spiritual areas. Step 2 is moving from awareness to evaluation, where the church leaders need to ask the question, what do we need to do? Step 3 is moving from evaluating needs to actual care, including training people to work with those with disabilities. Step 4 moves from caring for individuals to having friendships with individuals. Step 5 is belonging, where friendships shift into contribution within the church community. We can contribute in some way, and it is such an important part of feeling like we belong and have a purpose in the body. I'm going to let my dad summarize what we have talked about.
So, taking all of those things, the invitation, Jesus invites us to create a banquet table of belonging. And some of those realities, just 4 things, I think, just 4 simple things. 1, just invite someone and get to know someone with a disability if you don't. Get to know them, understand them, look for them, see them. The man with edema was at the table and knows Jesus moves towards him. Nobody else moved towards him. Jesus moved towards him. Who are you moving towards? And just get to know people. Oftentimes, people, pastors, churches, there's a fear. I don't know how to interact. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I probably said the wrong thing today. You probably said the wrong thing. Our hearts are in the right. We have to know people's hearts are in the right. We had a friend of Jenna's who was here, and part of caregiver burnout is because we knew him, and there we were caring and helping, and family members were helping, but no one else would, and there were times we couldn't or be there, and he was kind of left alone, and it was his birthday. We wanted to invite other people to the room, out to a room after the service just for cake. Get to know some people. Don't be afraid. Secondly, start something. Just start one thing. And if you begin to build something, a few will come. Not everyone will be there. There will be obstacles. People will get frustrated. People won't be there. Some people will say, well, that's not for me. But you just have to start somewhere. Where is God calling you to start? And if you start something, word gets out. Jesus started with one, and more happen later. And friends, we overestimate often what we can accomplish in a year. We're like big dreamers. I can do that. This is what we can do. In a year, we're going to do this. But we never get there in a year. But we underestimate what we can do in 5. And you look back over 3 to 5 years, and so much more gets to be done. Just start something. What is one thing about changing something physically, having a gathering of people, inviting someone? Thirdly, just love on some people. And I'm going to say, particularly, love on the parents. And it is estimated that one of the most unreached peoples in North America are parents of children with varying disabilities. because they can't come to church. It's hard for them. They don't know what's going to happen when they walk through the doors. They've had bad experiences with their kids. And so just even love on the parent, but let them know they're seen and known. Maybe just give them some respite. Give them, I'm not asking for this, Jen, but just give them a gift card for a night out or an Uber Eats card. Like just say, hey, I see you. And I'd love to help, but I don't know how I can help. But here's something. Don't shame people for being late to church. My wife gets here but every every Sunday's an adventure. And for my wife to get here with 3, now they're older, but it's a single parent for my wife trying to do that. And you don't know every time a special needs parent, you don't know what they've been through that morning and what it's taken to get there. And don't shame people for being late. And a short moment of real love is sometimes just what people need to see Jesus. Jesus saw the man, healed him, sent him on the way. Jesus didn't say, hey, like Zacchaeus, come and let's have dinner. He didn't say, you're going to stay with me. He healed them and sent them off. It was a short moment in time, but he left feeling known by Jesus. And then fourthly, collaborate with someone. The job is too big for us to do alone. So find other groups in the area that are working and come along and collaborate them. Caris are collaborating, right, with what they're doing. Collaborate with them. They want to partner with church, with Village Elogia here in the central part of the GTA. Working together, find groups, help people who are starting something. And maybe you can do something for people with physical disabilities. Maybe the church down the road can do something for intellectual disabilities. And we kind of divided and conquered. Imagine how much more could be done. Find other people who will assist. And let's start as churches working together, not competing against each other. And so the man with edema entered a room, but he really didn't belong. He was at the table, but not at the table. But Jesus made sure he didn't lead that way. And we're all called to extend that invitation to others. Aren't we, Jenna?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.